Okay, I see it there. So watch videos. That right there's too far away. When I hit watch now, okay. All right. Can you hear that? What I need to do. All right, Flint family, Flintstones. We here for another edition of Democracy Defense League here in Flint. And tonight we're going to talk about a big issue, the emergency manager law, a law that had everything to do with what happened to us in the Flint water disaster.
And what continues to happen with us.
Absolutely. But by going to the origins of what prompted it, this will equip us in how to fight back against our problems. And emergency manager has been like a dark cloud hovering over everything that's happened to us in the last almost 10 years. Now, tonight we have myself, Claire McClinton, with the Democracy Defense League, and we're going to show you a couple of inspiring videos to help equip us with an understanding. And we also have Bishop Bernadelle Jefferson, a water warrior who was a central part in our community in trying to resist and overturn the emergency manager law. And we're going to get into that in a little bit. But we have said when we don't know what we're fighting, we end up fighting each other.
We don't know how to fight.
Exactly. And this is one of our challenges here in the city of Flint. We're putting a lot of energy into fighting one another, which sometimes we do have to take on each other when we go off the track or undermine the good of the people. But it's getting to the point now where you can't distinguish between who's who and what's what. And the what is getting lost in the sauce. It's getting enmeshed and it's covered up. We don't even know what we're fighting. So hopefully this episode tonight bringing us in more focus and clarity on how did we get here. This is what we got to uncover. We got to get to the roots of the problems. That way we can come together to come to a resolution. We can't continue to just fight the manifestations of the problem. We have to get to the root causes. And hopefully tonight we will be able to empower ourselves to clarify where the fight is and what the fight is so that we can go forward. So,
and until we dig the roots up, the stump continues to grow. And it's growing like wildfire with out of control.
Yes.
Out of control. And there's so many people angry, but they're not angry with the right people.
That's right.
They're not angry about the right stuff.
That's right.
And so therefore, when we get an understanding, we can fight with knowledge and understanding.
Absolutely. And we play to win and we fight to win. We don't fight just to be fight.
That's it.
We want to win. So with that being said, I want to mention that over the almost 10 years since the water disaster began, we have had a lot of media here. We've had a lot of journalists here. We've had a lot of books written about the Flint water crisis, but very few journalists would get to the root of the problem. Mm-hmm. We all know we got poison. That we already know. We all know about Rick Snyder. We already know that. And he got away with it. Mm-hmm. But what in the depths of the situation, looking at the system and this capitalist model of society that we live in, what exactly pulled the trigger on us and other minority communities and other communities with assets like water, I'm gonna say it again, like water, that corporate interest was trying to steal. So they said, well, if we steal their democracy, we can steal their water. I'm gonna say that again. If we steal their democracy, we can steal their water. And that was some of the motives behind how we got where we are today. And again, very few journalists actually went in depth with that proposition, but one journalist, we feel, really summed it up, not only for Flint, but the whole shenanigans around the state of Michigan. So we're going to show that short clip, and it's very concentrated and very summarized of the model and the actors and everything else that had their fingers in the pot to benefit corporate entities.
Can you say that again?
To benefit
corporate
entities.
Not the community, not the people.
Exactly.
Not the lives of the people of Flint and Genesee County, because when we talk about it hurting Flint, well, there were more people connected to Flint than just the resident of Flint. How many people came in to work? How many children came in to play or to visit their grandparents or to visit their parents and came here to go to school? Mm-hmm. And they were harmed. Yes. Because their best interest. And to see those that were at fault that caused this, nothing happened. No accountability. Mm-hmm. And with that being said, where is our leadership here in the city of Flint? Mm-hmm. That's speaking out against these things? We'll take another program to talk about our local dysfunction and abandonment of the community. Mm-hmm. We're not going to get into that tonight. But when you serve corporate interests in the big 501c3s, you're serving the same people or the same class of people
the same class of people who triggered and made the water crisis happen for profit. So with that being said, can our producer key up the Rachel Maddow? Rachel Maddow did get to the heart of the matter as far as emergency manager. And she did cover not only Flint, but she covered Pontiac and Benton Harbor. And she did a great job in educating the American public. But this understanding has not quite broke through. You know, they're talking about everything but the emergency manager. We in Michigan lost our democracy. Cities around Michigan, mostly Black. At one time, over half the African American population in Michigan lived under emergency management. When you consider Detroit, Flint, Pontiac, Benton Harbor, Ecorse, Muskegon Heights, and so on and so forth, that was over half the Black population in Michigan.
Yes.
But yet, even though we was the most impacted, residents around this state said no to dictatorship. And we're going to talk about that after we get through watching this video.
The disaster that we're now in as a country, I think, is that the story of Flint was really the story of giving up on democracy. At the start of Snyder's first term as Michigan's new Republican governor a decade ago, Rick Snyder signed legislation that allowed him to just overturn an election anywhere in Michigan he wanted to. Yeah, in your town, you could elect your mayor and your town council and all that. But if Rick Snyder didn't like the people who you elected, by that legislation, he gave himself the power to reject the choices you and your town made in your election. He gave himself the power to declare an emergency, ignore the results of any democratic election, and instead just install his own hand-picked person to come in and run your town or your city or your school board without any need.
The truth gonna come out. They just be a little patient. They didn't understand what public Act 72. 72 just dealt with the financial.
To have any pesky answering to the voters. People kept making the wrong choices with their democracy. And so by rule, by order from the governor of the state, democratic choices would be overruled. They would be done away with because he knew better. And the people he gave himself the power to install were called emergency
Um, the
Who's responsible and accountable? Who has not had to stand up for it? And like I said, it took grassroots to bring it out, grassroots organization to bring it out then. And it's going to take grassroots organization to bring it to the forefront today. And if we present it to you, then you're able to make a knowledgeable decision and to work towards making justice, to have the injustice become justified for the people.
Okay, so I wanted Bishop Jefferson to share a little bit about her experience as the leader of the Stand for Democracy coalition here in the Genesee County, was it?
Yes, I was over Stand Up for Democracy in Genesee County. And what we did, or what I done, was to bring it to the attention of the people. And wherever the emergency manager showed up, we showed up to tell that he was lying, that they were lying because it was more than one, and to allow the people to know that they were not crazy. Stand Up for Democracy, we went all over Michigan because this is a Michigan law. It was not a city of Flint law. It was a Michigan law that hurt everybody. And what it did, as Rachel said, that it affected the school system, it affected the city council, it affected the mayor, it affected all of us, and it took our democracy away. It took our voice away because instead of having the voice of the people, it had a voice, which was the governor, Rick Snyder. It appointed and sent somebody. Even if city council voted on something, it didn't count. It was whatever the emergency manager said. And so we fought to get signatures. We needed 165,000 signatures in order for the law to go on the ballot to get it repealed. We got 215,000 signatures. We turned them in February of 2011. In March of 2011, it said that the font was not right. And so we went to the Court of Appeals in April of 2011. And they had 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans. And so they couldn't come to a conclusion, even though we had a specialist, somebody that was qualified to say that the font was right on the petition. Anything to hold us back, anything to stop us, anything to make our voice none and void. And so in May, we went to the Court of Appeals in Detroit. In June, we went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court didn't even vote to put it on the ballot. They just looked at it. And so in July, I was the only one from Flint went to Detroit to stand up and say, since you won't make a decision, and we put all the judges' pictures behind us. We went on TV, and they decided to put it on the ballot. In November the 6th to be exact, 2011, November 6, 2011, it was unanimously voted on to have Public Act 4 repealed. In December of 2011, Governor Rick Snyder had a lame duck session and tweeted it just a little bit, just tweeted for Public Act 4 to Public Act 436. They didn't change anything, didn't change the effects, didn't change the harm to the people. And not only did they tweet it, but they put it in place where it could not be put on the ballot to vote on it again. But the people voted that it was against our rights. It was against democracy. It was against our voice. But the people continue to fight. We continue to fight because we have a right to have a voice. We have a right to speak out. And so much blood, sweat, and tears have already been shedded that our voice be heard. And we decree and we declare that we will not stop speaking out to inform and give the people knowledge, to make a difference, to bring change. We're going to fight until we win the battle, not only for ourselves, but for the people. Our people, and for what our forefathers fought for, what they fought for, that we would have a voice, that we could vote. And that's why when you have a chance to vote, you ought to vote. You ought to exercise your privilege and your right to vote, because your voice makes a difference. Your voice, your vote do count.
That's right. So I think that was, I appreciate the sharing of that, because that was a tough battle. We won a victory when 80 out of 83 counties in the state of Michigan, all but 6 voted to get rid of this dictatorship law. Now, this was before anybody laid down and dreamed about being poisoned by emergency management. We was out there trying to prevent that, but we didn't know we was trying to prevent poisoning.
No.
But
prevent our education system that we destroyed.
Yes. So we won a round of battle, but we have not won the war. But the battle teaches us that we are capable. We're able to go against. They said this could never happen. They did everything they did to keep it from happening, to repeal, in other words, to get rid of a dictatorship law. And people of all stripes, whether they was Democrats, Republicans, Independent, Green Party, Libertarian Party, Socialist, Communist, white, black, Jews, Gentiles, Christians, Muslims, and everybody came, joined this fight. If they joined it by doing 2 things. They signed their name on a petition, and they went to the polls and voted no.
That's it.
To dictatorship.
Yes.
So that was a battle we won, but it was just one battle. And then the powers to be in the state government took our victory away from us and gave us 436. And in turn, we got what? Poison. We couldn't even imagine, lay down and imagine something like that would happen to us. But the fact that we have won that battle should inspire us all that we can come back, because that's just one battle in the big war. And I have to say, do our local leaders even, are these local leaders that we have, and even our state representatives, do they reflect the will of all the millions of people who signed off against the emergency manager? Do they look like those people? And right now we have to say, no, they don't.
Do they recognize what we put them to do? When we vote a person in the office, we vote them to speak for us, speak our voice.
Exactly.
Speak how we feel. Speak what's the betterment for us. Is it for our good and well-being? Is it going to help us? Is it going to hurt us? What is it going to do? When we put a person in the office, no, I don't care what office it is. If it's a dog training office, if we put them in there to make a difference, to help. And when they go to the left, off sides, and go there or do their own thing, not caring, not anticipating. Is it gonna bring harm? Is it gonna hurt? Is it gonna kill the people? Is it gonna put them in a stagnated position?
So what have we learned from the experience of emergency manager? The emergency, the experience we have as a residents of this state, the experience we learned that the residents of this state is pretty smart, and they're very energized when they understand what's at stake. And when they did that to Benton Harbor and stole their lakefront property, Lake Michigan, Benton Harbor sits right there on Lake Michigan. They stole a park that was given to the residents of Benton Harbor because it's on that prime real estate, and they stole it and served it into turned it into a golf course. And the people around this state looked at that, whether they were black, white, native, the indigenous community, they all looked at that, and we got over 1,500 miles of lake shore in Michigan with the Great Lakes now. We got a lot of Benton Harbors around our state.
And also, they took the park away. A community that was free for anybody to go and enjoy.
So when the people saw what they did to Benton Harbor, they said, you're not going to come to our community and do this. So that there was a lot of inspiration to get that ballot and get that law overturned. One of the things that we wanted to also highlight is that we have to ask ourselves, why did they send emergency manager to Benton Harbor? Why did they send emergency manager to Muskegon High School District? Why? We have to ask ourselves why, and we're constantly learning. And the why is in the case of Flint, is that corporate powers wanted to seize control of our water. They want to turn water into a commodity for sale for a profit. And then let me say that again. They want to seize control of a natural resource and a public asset and steal it for themselves. Corporate America, steal it for themselves and make money off of water, make a profit off of water. Right now in the city of Flint, when you look at your water bill, you don't see the corporate hand on that bill. All you see is what you got to pay. But if we peel back the layers, we will discover that 60% of our water bill is going to pay Wall Street. Just imagine if you got a $100 water bill, $60 is going to Wall Street. Well, how did this happen? Well, it's going to the JP Morgan's, Stidale, and Wells Fargo, because those are the corporate interests that funded the KWA. And we, in the city of Flint, are saddled with part of that debt. And that debt is there so that Wall Street can make money. So we have to say, well, wait a minute. Water is life. How is someone allowed to take something that people need to survive and make money off of it? So if you don't pay for the water, I mean, in all reality, the model of this is, if you don't have enough money to pay for your water, you die, because you need water to live.
And in our case in Flint, Michigan, not only do we have to pay a high price for an unfunctionable item
Mm-hmm.
because we got water we can't drink. We got water we can't cook with. And we
Right.
still got water we can't bathe in.
Right.
I mean, they keep telling that lie, making the United States of America believe that we have been made whole, that the water system has been fixed, and it is not fixed yet. 9.5 years later, it's still not fixed. 9.5 years later, it's still not fixed.
Mhm.
And we're still paying the highest price
In the
For-
nation.
in the nation.
So we're gonna move on to we talked a little bit and we just scratched the surface of the emergency manager, the hidden hand of corporate America behind the emergency manager. But we're gonna end on an upbeat because now we're gonna hear some information about there are voices out there standing up for our interests and our livelihood and our well-being. And one of those voices is Representative Mary Carter. She's a state rep out of Pontiac.
Not out of Flint.
I wish she was from Flint, but she's not.
She's not.
We're going to try to recruit her and bring her down here. But anyway, but the thing of it is that she has introduced, after all these years of the emergency manager law being on the books and still on the book, like Bishop just shared, when we did repeal it, they tweaked it and kept it going. So that's all right. We learning some lessons from our battles. But
So that was
Mary,
2011, and this is 2020, 23. 12 years later.
so we want to end this on a positive note about there are signs of there is some social justice warriors out there still. There is some potential for us to be made whole, and we all know we're not being made whole, but the introduction of her legislation is a shout across the bow. It's a declaration of war because the emergency manager law must be, like my friend Claudia Perkins say, obliterated. We must get rid of that law because we are subject to be under that system again.
And with getting rid of that law, it puts other things in place because in January of 2012, I was one of the ones, the entity that we signed a lawsuit against the state of Michigan and against Rick Snyder. And it's been in and out of court. Part of it's been thrown out. But because the erection of what Mary Carter has done will bring a whole lot of changes.
Yes. So this is a very short interview, and we're going to watch that because we always want to end these podcasts on a positive note. We want to have a uplifting ending. We can do. We're Flint. We're not used. We always say that when they poison Flint, they poisoned the wrong city. They poisoned the wrong city. And the reason why we say that, because we got a rich history of social justice.
Mm-hmm.
And we have social justice in our DNA. But again, we have fallen back. We have fallen asleep. We're down, but we're not out. So I'm going to ask him to put Mary Carter on because I started to tell her maybe you from Flint because you got that Flintstone vibe going
Tenacity.
on. Mm-hmm.
While he's getting it up, that's why it's so important to vote and know the person that you're voting for. Know what they represent, know what they stand for, know whether they care about you as a people or care about their own well-being and how their pockets can be lined.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm fine.
Can you hear me?
Forward.
Yes, I can hear you just fine.
About a
Yes,
minute.
we
That's right. Back up a little
Bob,
bit.
thank you so much for not only doing this little video, and I in case to make sure you know that this is being recorded, because we're going to show it on a podcast next week for your information. But we're so excited that you're here, and we want to take our hat off to you, because the legislation that you have introduced to repeal the emergency manager law is a important and long overdue resolution and legislation, and the entire state will be a beneficiary of it. So thank you for that, and hats off to you. And so we want to,
You're so welcome.
yes, so we in the Flint community are just excited that this has happened. And we just have a few questions. We want to give some background to you. Who is Representative Carter? Where did she come from? How did she come to the state rep position? So if you want to talk a little bit about that, where you're from, and so on.
Hopefully you hear me. I think my phone went out.
I can hear you. You're breaking up. You're breaking up a little bit.
Okay, and I apologize. We're on our way to Detroit, unfortunately, but
Okay.
I come from Pontiac, and as many may know, Pontiac not only had an emergency manager, not the city of Pontiac had 3 emergency managers. They really wanted to give it to us good, so they gave us, every time they changed the law, they gave us a different emergency manager. Our still had consent agreement, so because that's when they came up with that PA 436. We had a choice between being taken over, having a godlike power like Don Witherspoon become our consent agreement consultant. So we were not only hit in the city, but we were hit in the schools.
Wow, unbelievable. Well, so what is your background? How did you come to the decision, and we're very glad you did, to become a state rep?
Well, I was on the Pontiac School District Board of Education, okay? And when we were hit with our consent agreement consultant, we sat back pretty much helpless, watching as the entities outside of our city and our school pretty much dictated what we could and could not do. And it was so painful to watch how people were losing their jobs, and our resources were being siphoned off. We lost 8 schools under the consent agreement. A lot of things that were just mandated by the state under the former governor's administration, that it was something that, if I felt that unless I got where the state is, unless I got on the state level, communities like Flint, Saginaw, Detroit, Benton Harbor, they all have the same common theme. And if you look and see, every city that was hit by an emergency manager were majority minority districts. You know, I figured that the only way that I can make a difference, a real difference, was to run for the legislature.
Very good. That's powerful. And you had firsthand, on the ground experience with this horrendous law and the emergency managers. And tell us a little bit more about your experience in Pontiac in the schools. You already mentioned school closing and other things. What other things were done under the emergency manager regime there in Pontiac?
Well, I can't speak for the city, but I know that they sold off quite a few resources in our city at the time that the emergency manager was in Pontiac City. We
Mhm.
lost a lot of our vital resources. But the school district, like I said, we had a consent agreement consultant. So the school board was able to negotiate some of the things that were being done, but the final decision was left to the consent agreement consultant. So when it came to the time in 2016, when they tried to sell our high school because allegedly we were in financial and academic duress,
Yes.
knowing that they would kill our city if they took away our only high school, we went to war. It wasn't just me, it was William Carrington, by the way, who's from Flint. He was my vice president on the board, and he and
Mhm.
I got together with several of our other members, and we went out and we knocked doors, and we had to do 3 villages. 3 times we went out for a ballot proposal for a village, and if it hadn't been for the city on Easter, who was hit by an emergency manager, we may not have passed that third time. But because Easter stepped in and said, look at what they did to us. They destroyed our high school. They took away our resources. We're nothing but a skeleton. Do you really want this to happen to you, Pontiac? Pontiac
Right.
said no. Pontiac
Okay.
said no. We stepped up.
All right. That's a good victory story there. Um, now, yes, it is. Now, does the legislation that you've introduced, does it outright repeal or does it amend the Public Act 436?
Well, mine actually repeals it, okay? It
Good.
was my goal. My goal was
Awesome.
to get rid of it, okay? Because
Awesome.
it was detrimental to minority cities. They don't like us using black, but the real is that most of the cities that they hit were black. Okay,
Yeah.
majority black.
Mm-hmm.
But in order for my bill to go through, which was House Bill 4065, we have to also orchestrate a replacement for the Emergency Manager Act. And I'm working with Representative Abraham Ayash, who was also in a city that was hit by an emergency manager, Hamtramck and Detroit. I'm working with him right now with the replacement. And as soon as we get the replacement done, then we'll introduce, well, my bill's been introduced. He's going to introduce the replacement, and hopefully we can not only repeal it, but we can come up with something that the Department of Treasury and the administration will vote in favor of.
All right. What is your thoughts on the water disaster in Flint and what happened under the emergency manager and the ongoing lack of accountability?
Okay, now I can't speak for the accountability, but I know that several of us from Pontiac came up to Flint with water because when they were coming to Flint with the water from various entities, I won't name any, they were afraid to go into certain areas of Flint. Of course, I wasn't afraid to go into any area of Flint. Okay, so we were going in where they did not want to go and bring water. So how do I feel about what happened with the Flint water crisis? I feel it was an atrocity. Once again, it could come to a community near you. Right now, we are struggling in Benton Harbor right now to make sure that water is safe. It's just a model that hopefully with under this new administration, we will address and we will take care of it.
Yes, very good. Awesome. And that's so true. And we have really gone through it here in Flint, and we're not out of the woods yet. Even though we don't have an emergency manager, we're living with the impact of an emergency manager because our water situation has yet to be resolved. We're still waiting to be made whole. And you probably heard that the state actors, along with Snyder, they shut the door on that case, but we're working on that. But getting back to your legislation, what can we as a community outside of the legislature, what can we do to support your legislation?
Well, I'm proud to say that my colleagues, Representative Cynthia Neely and her husband, Mayor Sheldon Neely, was very quick to jump on supporting and putting in a resolution and passing the resolution to support the repeal of PA 436. Not only did the Neelys or Flint do it, Detroit came behind it, Pontiac came behind it. And this is what we need to do. We need the support that we need for this legislation is for the people to continue to step up and say, we have not only got to repeal and replace, we got to fix the damage that was done by these egregious laws.
Very good. That's awesome. How about the governor? Is the governor's office showing any support, or they taking hands off, or where do they stand on the legislation?
Well, I think the administration is waiting for the replacement. I'm almost sure that the governor is in favor of something that is not going to be punitive on our cities who have already been destroyed. All you have to do is look at the recent legislation that was passed with the getting rid of the debt from the school districts. Pontiac School District was removed $18 million of debt that was under the administration back previous administration when they enacted those egregious laws once again that was very punitive to minority communities that put them in lots of debt, like Detroit. Detroit had a fund balance, but then they had all these emergency managers and they ended up losing all their money. I believe that these are positive steps that the administration has taken, and and they will fix it.
Well, that's promising. That sounds good. Are you aware of the emergency manager coming back to Flint or any other city? I mean, because the law is still on the books. Are you hearing anything about them thinking about sending one to anywhere?
I don't think that will happen under the current administration or the current legislature. I just don't think it will happen.
All right, because we can bear witness that there's nothing left for the emergency manager to take and get rid of here in Flint. They did all the damage when they were in. So anyway, that's about all that I have for now. This is very useful and encouraging, and we're so glad to get the update on that, and we want to continue to communicate with you and see if it's anything our group, Democracy Defense League, and there's other groups out here, we're still fighting the effects of the emergency manager. So we're very, very anxious and excited to repeal it, and we take our hats off to you for leading that effort. And
yeah,
so
I definitely thank you for the work that you're doing. It's very important because the long-term effects of the emergency manager law have not been felt yet. Okay, whether it's what happened in Flint or whether it happened in Pontiac. Bottom line of the tune is not only do we have to repeal it and replace it with something that's not so damaging to majority minority districts, but we also need to make those districts, those cities whole. And I think that's the 3 steps that we need to look at.
That's right. That is so well said. And so I appreciate you. I guess we're done for now. Thank you for your busy schedule to come on with us. And I can't wait to share this with the Flint community. And I'm sure many people will come up with ideas and things of how we can support what you're doing. So we're going to stay in touch with you, and we appreciate you. And you have a good day.
You too. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you for coming. Bye-bye.
So as we have people fighting for us, we have to continue to fight with them. And how can we fight? Vote. How can we fight to let the people know that their vote and their voice is so important? And together we win.
Yes, we do. And we have to vote, but we have to also get organized because voting just to vote is not that. We have to have candidates and leaders, not politicians, leaders that we can galvanize and get behind. And then once they get in there, if they stand up for the people, we as community have to stand up and defend our leaders. When people have something to vote for, they vote. I mean, the emergency manager ballot thing to get rid of emergency manager, people got out there and voted for that because they had a strong sense of something that needed to be changed.
How did they get that sense clear?
Well, they got that sense because they are, people instinctively want democracy. The idea that somebody could come to your city and make all the decisions was just, it was just, they just couldn't stomach that.
It was ludicrous, and it took the grassroots organization to bring it to the forefront.
Absolutely.
It took our voice, letting the community know, educating,
informing, and building an organization. We had organization. We had Stand for Democracy. Wasn't no individual out here just shooting off, blowing steam. We had organization. We had Stand for Democracy. We had Brandon Jessup, a young leader, emerging leader out of Detroit, who sounded the alarm. And when he sounded the alarm, here come ASME and other organizations, and they created Stand for Democracy. So you're 100% right. But we had that organization, and I'm gonna tell you something. There were some Republicans, they were white, up near Traverse City. When we were signature gathering, they sent a box down here every week with signatures.
Yes, they did. Yes,
and they was Republicans, and they told the organizer at the time, "We're Republicans. We are Republicans. We're not trying to change parties or none of that, but we got to get rid of this dictator law."
And that's why I said it was not a Democrat or a Republican. It wasn't a black or white. It was a people's issue.
Yes.
It was a people issue because it was affected all people.
Yes. Yes, it did. And
it's still affecting us.
And one of the things I liked about what Representative Carter said, she said, repeal and replace. And I don't know what that looks like, but she said, but restoration, restoring all of the damage. How can, for example, how can Benton Harbor seize back control of their park?
And they're trying their best to close their main high school.
Yeah, but she brought a very good point on that last point, to fight to restore what was lost. And that's a big job. And I understand why she said the emergency manager law is having impact for years to come. So,
and the half has not been told yet. And that's why I said, because of the lawsuit that was filed in January of 2012 against the state of Michigan and against Rick Snyder, which were in control, that kept instituting the emergency manager law. And so once it comes to a place to repeal it, to get back, then we can replace what has been taken away from us.
Well, we need to follow up on that too, because we haven't heard too much about that. And every all hands on deck with all the court, the legislature, and the streets.
Yes.
That's all we got.
Yes.
The court, the legislature, and and when you say legislature and vote, look, we not just talking about voting. We talking about going up there and exacting pressure on the people that's in there. And so we got the court, the legislature, and the street. Thank you, General Baker, my mentor from the League of Revolutionary Black Workers out of Detroit, that taught us that. And so we're gonna pursue this and other topics in coming weeks as we head into 2024 and prepare prepare for a 10-year commemoration. And I want to make that clear.
So
We
good.
tried to make it clear, Bishop, but
Yes.
they still want to call it celebration.
We're not
We
celebrating.
never had
We don't
a
have
celebration.
anything to celebrate.
We ain't never had a celebration.
No.
Every year we would have a commemoration. What do we mean by commemoration? We pause and
Reflect.
acknowledge
Remember.
the harm that has been done to us,
Mhm.
but we also talk about the issues to get out of this situation
Mhm.
going forward. So it's sort of like you're commemorating, but you're also planning action for the future.
Mhm.
So we planning this is gonna be big for the 10-year. So we look forward anybody that wants to participate and help us. You got some ideas of some of the things we can do. We're on Facebook, Democracy Defense League. You can message us, and we'll see you soon on the next edition of Democracy Defense League Public Talk.
And until next time, keep fighting, keep standing, and keep getting knowledge.
Mhm.
Knowledge is power. And when you take that knowledge and begin to activate it, we will make a difference. We will bring change to our community, and we will be reconciled back into the place of making us whole.
Night, everybody.
Good night.
Like, share, and subscribe to Fli-City Blackout, folks. This is alternative media. We're not gonna get this information off of TV and TV. The the 5, 12, 25. No, we need our own media and our own resource to connect with our community. So please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.
Thank you.